Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody, and today we're going to talk about exactly what the meta is going to look like post Dromai with all the correct answers. Obviously, we know 100% what it's going to be, so we'll give that to you today. And today, to talk about that, I am joined with Connor and Dan. Connor was nice enough to come visit us at one of our RTNs, or our ProQuest this week, that Dan and I were both at. How long of a drive was that for you, Connor?
2 hours, 45 minutes, 3 hours. It wasn't bad. I've driven
Oh, yeah.
further for worse tournaments. So, right.
And you brought back the girl, right?
Oh, yes. So we had to go specifically to the Jersey ProQuest because one of my friends, he's a musician and he had a tuba that he played all during high school and everything. And so he was getting it cleaned by a specialty brass instrument store down in somewhere in New Jersey, Somerset area, New Jersey. And so he was like, "Oh, let's go to this one. It doubles up. I have to pick up the tuba." So we secured the tuba. We did not secure an invite, but we went home with the tuba, which was a pretty good prize.
And what'd you bring?
I played Dash, obviously. I should have listened to the boys and played Hatchatory, but I built a Dash deck that I was like, "Oh, this can never lose to Warrior." And then I just couldn't beat anything else. And I was prepped for the runaway team kills and I didn't get there. So that's what I get.
There were three of us on hatchets. Dan, you were also there. You did well
I
at that
was.
event. You brought hatchets, right?
Yep, raw hatchets did pretty well. I actually can't remember how the event went. I'm a little spacey right now. I know I made top 8, and then I got fatigued by a Richter. That's what happened. Yeah, that matchup was really tricky, and that game specifically was interesting. We were like 12 turns in, and we were both at like 40 or more health. And I was like, I think I'm ahead on cards, but you're pitch stacking, and I'm not really pitch stacking. And I was like, surely the hatchet math means I win. Because I haven't really played the full fatigue Victor matchup too much, but I was wrong. And I realized pretty soon after that I was wrong, and it was just like, didn't really have any way to win from there, but I tried to find one and I failed. But no, hatchets were great. The top 4 after Swiss, or top 4 after Swiss were all hatchetories. I think it was top 5. No, it was 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How'd it go for you, Cody?
Similar boat. I mean, it had you, me, and Dalton were all there on hatchets. All of us made top 8. We were at Gilded Raven for Saturday, which is always a great store. We were there. It was a little unfortunate because we all did make top 8, and then Dalton ended up taking it down, which is great on the hatchet deck. It was a little unfortunate because your round 6 opponent and my round 6 opponent were each other's top 8 opponents. And we both won that game. So like you beat the Dromai in your last round, and then I beat the Victor in my last round. And then we immediately go to top 8, and then we're facing opposite. So I'm facing the guy that you just beat, and you're facing the guy I just beat. And I will say they had a little bit of adjustments between the two games, and I think we both just lost. Like,
good on them.
Good on them. Of course, good on them.
Yep. I adjusted for Sunday, got him back, but it's okay.
It's okay. I got revenge immediately after losing to the Dromai, which, to be fair, I haven't lost to a Dromai with Hatchet Dory in a very long time. And I actually got full fatigued. To be fair, he did blow up my boots on turn 4, and then it was like turn 7, he blew up my helmet. So with Tumultai, it's like he remembers it back, then got Tumultai back, and then blew up my helmet. And so I was down boots and down helmet, and we're only halfway through the game, and I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be tough." And then he was doing a very interesting strat with his double remembrances, where he would only bring back 6 power attacks and Tumultai, and then he would just throw 6 power attacks. And I ended up fatiguing because I couldn't cover them well enough. But I got my revenge because then I went to Dalton after the game and said, "Hey, Dalton." Dalton asked, "Hey, what do I do?" And I was like, "Put your shunts in the deck." And that's basically what he did. Put shunts, a couple extra cards in, and was able to take down the Dromai the next round. So
I heard the game was very unenjoyable.
Probably.
Because they were both playing towards full fatigue. So it was just like such a slog.
Yep. So then Dromai's gone now, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. So unfortunately, my last time playing Dromai, no, not my last time, I played the next day. So I did get my win on the next day. We're good. But yeah, great for Dalton. Good showing for hatchets. And then you and me, Dan, went to the Portal games on Sunday. That was a good event as well. And we both top 8'd again.
Yep.
You went a little further than I did, so you want to tell me about how that went?
Yeah, sure. So hatchets again, of course. What was the first round of top 8?
Victor.
Oh, right. First round of top 8 was Victor. And Cody said he was playing like first cycle pretty aggressive against him and Swiss, the same guy. But when I played, he was definitely pitch stacking. And it was like all good and fun. We're like trading health a little bit. It wasn't as like grindy as the last one. But he sees my second remembrance and he realizes that I adjusted for the day. And I think the second one I really needed because I drew all of my power cards like immediately. I didn't have a good way to pitch them, like all the spill bloods, all the hit and runs. So I just played them nice and loose. The first time I drew them was like, sure, just play them. And then I remembrance back like one and a couple hit and runs. And then I got back to the second remembrance back the last one and kind of won just through getting those triple swings in. The Virtue deck's pretty cool. They're playing Staunch, which like was actually a pretty reasonable tech against us. I don't know if it's just for Dory, but it's pretty annoying when we're trying to go 3 wide and they slam that and equipment to cover up. Or even just don't even need equipment if it's more, all right. They can just pay 6, cover 10. But I won that game. It took like hour and a half, 2 hours. It felt like 2 hours. It was probably closer to an hour. And then I play against Dromai, and I did not play my shunts or Northern Hat, so that was unfortunate. He presents 70 cards. I present 60. I had no idea how he was going to play the matchup. I hadn't played against him or heard how he was playing it.
You forgot.
But I have 2 remembrances, so I'm like...
Your Null Rune Hood? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I subbed the wrong hat. I was just lazy. Like, I realized when I got home, I was like absolutely destroyed by allergies. I guess it was like a big spike in allergies that day. But I was just lazy and I like didn't look at the piece of paper I had in front of me that said what equipment to sub. I just skipped to the cards. Which like, it made it so hard. Like I had to try so hard to have a chance. Like I knew I was going to lose from the second we started and he presented 70 and I forgot no rune. But it was like, if he makes any mistake, like any major mistake in that game, I'm going to steal it. So I just had to like grind and use all of my brain power. And I think that game was actually 2 hours because we went to like 6th cycle. But he played very well. Yeah, shout out to him for beating me. He did a good job. I was so like out of it mentally by the end of the game. I was going through his piles, like his graveyard and his banish. And I split his banish at one point and I put it on top of the graveyard or something. I mixed up his piles basically. But luckily we were able to do the burn them all math to determine how many cards should be in banish. But it just like added 20 minutes for no reason. But that's how my run ended. But shout out to my brother Mike. He took down the event with Levia. So that was sick to see. It would have been me and him in the finals. So the only thing I regret is not getting the like finalist playmat picture with him.
Yeah, that would have been sick. It was close. That is an unfortunate way to lose that matchup.
Yeah, I never really had a chance.
Yeah.
And it was like, oof, I wish I had shunts.
So I mean, you had a great chance before the game. If you...
Oh, 100% lost in sideboarding. Yeah. And then I had to just like try my hardest, even though I know it wasn't going to happen.
And Connor, did you play on Sunday?
I did not. Nope. Just chilled for the day.
Lazy. Took the day off.
Yeah, I have like 3 different decks I'm working on, and none of them are like quite there yet. So I was like, all right, let me polish these up some more.
Well, I was also there. I got top 8 as well. I lost to the Victor that Dan, you had beat. And he first cycled me. He did not pitch at all. He just had gas the whole time. That was the only Victor I lost to the whole weekend. I played 5. Lost. That was my only loss. That feels pretty good for being a hatchet, Dory deck. I don't like the matchup. I don't enjoy playing that matchup very much. It's very winnable for hatchets. It's especially more winnable now that we can take all the Dromai stuff out and make the make our deck a little better. Not have a bunch of crack bobbles in the deck. That'll make it a lot nicer. But I don't really enjoy playing that matchup. It feels pretty annoying, and the only thing that matters is if they pummel you. Is kind of how that whole matchup feels. So it's like, do their pummels hands line up well? If they don't, you just win the game. If they do, then you probably lose. I ended up losing in top 8 to Kano. which is unfortunate. I was in a very weird spot at the beginning of the game. It was like I had like a Take It on the Chin set, and then he played an Aether, the one that Aether Flare, the one that, you know, if this hits, it's gonna boost the next one. And he had like several cards in his hand, so he's just gonna like go off the top. This is like turn 1, and I end up drawing an Oasis. And so I have an Oasis in hand. I have the Think on the bottom, but I only have 1 blue in my hand, and I can't push any damage. So I end up just using it was coming in for 4, so I just use the Oasis on there because it's like turn 1. And I have Take It on the Chin set, and I can like draw another one in the game. I can play pretty, you know, defensively, and not take damage. And then he only ends up being able to do 1 damage the rest of that turn, which is great. Unfortunately, I end up, the game goes super long. He ends up blocking with 4 out of the 6 combo pieces. And he ends up seeing the other 2 before I see my other Oasis. And ends up being able to combo off. But even if I had the Oasis, it's unlikely I would have lived. He flipped too many high power attacks right off the bat. He was just like, here's a 5 power attack. Here's a 4 power attack, like off the top of his deck. And I was just like, oh no, like I'm fine if they have to do the middling, like, you know, blue, yellow attack in the middle. But it's like 2 reds, which is like too many. So Kano ended up getting me in first cycle. There's like a good argument that maybe I should have kept the first Oasis and set it, but I really wanted to be able to use my arsenal for the beginning of the game to be able to push. Because again, I don't know how he's playing, if he's first cycling or stacking. And then I would like to actually use my arsenal because it's the only chance I have to be able to push damage while also holding back cards to protect myself with, being able to keep power cards to the next turn. And it was like super early in the game. Didn't see any of my sigils either, which would have been nice, would have gotten me, you know, higher up in the range as well. But overall, tournaments were great. Sucks losing in top 8 in each round. But we get to change up the deck, which is exciting, moving in. So anyone else have anything for their ProQuest this weekend to talk about? Okay, well, let's move on to everyone else's ProQuest this weekend and see what kind of results we got. As we do every week, LSS published all the decks at one ProQuest this weekend. And to no surprise to anybody, Dromai 120. That was Dromai's last stand. I think a lot of people were playing it just to try and get, you know, be one of the people who got it Living Legends. And it's gone. It won 20. It won the most. That's, you know, pretty good. Next was KO 115. Good to see, because for some reason in our area there are no KO players at all. We went to, I think across our 2 events there were 4 KO total, which is,
that's probably like across like 50 people.
Yep. Which is very surprising. Big Victor area up here. Okay. And then we have Dorinthia with 12 wins. That's great to see. People probably mostly playing hatchets, probably a couple of Dawn Blades in there. And then a little surprising, I think, is Prism with 10 wins right below that. Prism doing pretty well, even, you know, with Dromai and Kano floating around, even though the Dromai matchup is a lot better than it used to be. I don't think that's any like a good thing for Prism. And then we have Victor at 10 wins, kind of in the middle of the pack. Azalea at 9, Katsu at 7, Kasai at 4, Kano at 3. Anything on this list surprising or you want to talk about?
Just Prism, like you said, I think. Like the rest of those are just the best decks in the format. Kano's kind of low, I think.
I think the Dory adoption this quickly is pretty nice to see.
Yep.
Usually the people are kind of slow to react to, especially like a deck didn't win technically. And it's kind of it's a very grindy style deck. But its adoption rate has been, pretty high for a deck like that, I think.
Yeah, I like to think people like tried it and then got kind of hooked on it. I don't know.
I think
I did see a bunch of our
Dynamos is a hell of a drug.
Is so insane. But yeah, I saw a bunch of our subscribers won their ProQuests with our Hatchet Dory sideboard guide and matchup game plans. They did what we failed to do this weekend. So shout out to them.
Yep, that was great to see.
Mhm.
But now it's a whole new game. Dromai, who has been the bane of existence for many a deck. I know I personally, for the last over a year, every time I'm thinking about bringing a deck to a tournament, I have to say, but can it beat Dromai? And I'm like not willing to bring a deck that doesn't beat Dromai. And at every major event I've gone to for the last year, I've played like 2 Dromai at every single event. So I had to make that decision. But now we never have to think about that again. We don't have to consider Dromai at all. It opens up, obviously, as a lot of people think, a lot of decks get better because Dromai's gone. So what we're going to talk about now is where we think the meta is going to go since Dromai is going to be gone. What are some decks that you can think of that get better immediately by Dromai being gone or are now actually playable? I'll throw one out while you guys are ruminating on that. I think Azuri becomes a lot better of a deck. I think it's an easy one to say. Azuri was already doing well. It's a deck that has never been the best deck in the game, but has actually really good results at like a battle-hardened calling level. It has kind of shown up into top 8s a lot, even in metas where it had didn't feel like it had any business being there. Has won events when it's a very low representation of a deck. And its worst matchup by far is now gone, which is Dromai. And this match, I don't think this meta is very bad for Azuri. I think Hatchet favored, but an Azuri can absolutely win that. That's been, in my opinion, a skill matchup. Whoever understands both decks the most typically wins that matchup. Its KO match is playable if the KO doesn't just pop off with like everything from the beginning. Once Azuri can put its style onto the game, which is kind of like Azuri's main strength, is Azuri makes you play Azuri's game. Once it can start doing that to KO, I think it then has enough to actually push through and win that matchup. A lot of Azuri say the Victor matchup or the Guardian matchup is better than it used to be. I think that's a lot harder into Victor. I think Victor's getting free draw is pretty hard for Azuri to deal with. So that's one that they're going to have to figure out a game plan for. I also think its Prism matchup is god-awful. It's nearly free for Prism. Prism only loses that matchup if they just draw non-blocks for 4 rounds and can't do anything. I think that's pretty easy for a decent Prism player. Its Azalea matchup is supposed to be decent as well. I'm not 100% sold on that, but it's supposed to be pretty good. And then its Katsu matchup is a little mixed, but it seems well positioned where Azuri is actually a real deck right now. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I think it was already like really strong, like you're saying.
It's like style into the game. Like she is so disruptive and has all these really good attacks that can target different things or are just generically good. Like they're just good against Arsenal setups. And if your deck doesn't have any D-reacts or any kind of prevention effect to instant speed, it's hard to be able to stop those. Just isolate is a pain. And so I think that Azuri now having to deal with Dromai, like now it opens her up to be good against the other kind of setup decks that show up. Maybe she can get some more cards for Prism, or maybe more cards to help the Brute matchup or something. But no, I definitely am on board with Azuri and kind of like all the other assassins and Riptide, even just like the kind of slow, little bit ponderous control decks. I think get a lot better without Dromai.
Yep. Still super weak to Kano. Can't win that matchup to save their life. Even worse than Kasai. What do you guys think? What is another deck that you think has gotten significantly better?
I wonder if we see more Azalea adoption finally.
I hope.
Like, I know some Azaleas say they figured out the Dromai matchup, but like surely Dromai being gone makes the deck more appealing to some people, just not having to deal with that matchup.
God, I hope not. Azalea is such a problem deck. And
I also hope not, but for how powerful it is, like surely it should be played more.
Sure, but let's all agree not to play Azalea because it is a cancer deck that shouldn't exist.
Yep.
That's my favorite
the
kind of
only
deck.
reason no one is complaining about it is because no one is playing it.
See, I like Azalea. I've always liked kind of like downhill prison decks in all the various teams I've played. And Azalea really is that. It's like, all right, lock you out your turn, and you just keep a good aggressive like attack coming at you, and then just end the game that way. And if I just chain like 3 prison effects, it's game over. I've won a lot of like Magic Legacy tournaments just being like, well, the game's a lot easier if your opponent doesn't cast their cards. They just don't play anything. It's really easy to win the game.
That's terrible.
I do think though, Azalea is a rough call if more Victor shows up, and I think Victor gets a lot better with Dromai leaving. Obviously, he didn't quite have the same ability to punch through like Bravo did against Dromai. I mean, it's a classic Dromai matchup where the Guardian player's like, oh, I never lose to Dromai, and the Dromai players never lose to Guardian. But I think that Victor not having to deal with that and getting some more tech spots open up for the rest of the format puts him in a really, really, really strong spot because he's really good. Test of strength, trounce, it's messed up. It's really, really strong.
Yeah, I do think post Dromai, I would move him out of unplayable tier.
Yeah, I mean,
I forget what the next tier was, but it's like 1 up.
Yeah, I think Victor's good.
No, he's all the way up. All the way up.
He still can't. He still has some like matchups that are really bad for him. Any Victor who said that they could like Dromai was a good match for them, it just didn't play against real Dromai players. It's just like sit down against any good Dromai player, and that's like it's almost 100% matchup for Dromai. It's so easy. Like even without good experience, you can make mistakes against Victor as Dromai, and you just like win. So no, Dromai still, Dromai being gone is great for Victor. Victor still can't really beat Kano at all, which is another issue. I think its Prism matchup is pretty bad. It might be able to try and do something though, if it runs like Time Skippers or something. But while I think that helps, I don't think that wins them the game. Anyway, as someone who plays a lot of Prism, I think the Victor matchup is pretty easy for the Prism player. They can lose more often than like a Dromai could, and that's mainly just because you need to see some cards within like the first 6 turns as the Prism. So it's not like, while you have no agency as Victor, it's not like you're 100% dead every time you see a Prism, which is nice, I think. I think Victor overall is in a good spot. I think he's very strong. Our area loves Victor. He shuts down a lot of decks who could be problems. He's kind of gatekeeping, I think, a lot of problem decks right now. So I'm pretty happy like he's being played at the level he is. Like Katsu and Azalea are both 2 decks that Victor really keeps down. And if Victor was not as good or not as prominent, I think we would see a much bigger problem of Katsu, and people might be asking for like Mask to be banned, because Mask is an insane plus 15 value helmet in that deck. But Victor just says you can't play the game, and I win this most of the time. And then he does the exact same thing to Azalea. His Azalea matchup, even with 0 D-reacts, is like very strong, just because of the fact that he gets to draw a card and then play 1 big attack, and they just have to block or do something.
It's also the grindstone. Like if you play that matchup, the second they swing the grindstone, you're just like, wait, how do I possibly play this game? Like I have to block 2 cards, or I'm just gonna get fatigued. Like it's so miserable.
Yep. I think Victor's very healthy for the meta right now.
Okay.
Like he's really needed to make sure, like we need him to show up to events to keep other decks in check. While I don't think he's the best deck in the game by far, I think his KO match is pretty like lackluster. They need to do some new technology to like actually be able to win that matchup a little bit more reliably. So like a larger setting when you have to play multiple KOs is like pretty hard. And then you also can't run into Kano. So like, I still don't think he's a good, like large tournament pick, but I think what he's doing for the meta for everybody else is very, very good. It's very healthy.
It sounds like Kano's the real winner to me. Like all these decks that are now playable and pretty good, they're just like complete dogs to Kano.
Yeah.
Like Kasai's a deck now. You can play Kasai. Great.
Yeah.
Just don't pair into Kano.
Yeah, the big winner, surprise to nobody, is Kano. Kano is the big winner of Dromai being gone. While that matchup was winnable for Kano, he didn't want to play against it. So what do we think? Our new overlords, the Kano overlords, right?
I have to see. So, yeah, no, Kano always winning.
Yeah, I think Kano is in a good spot, unfortunately. I think it gets better the more people try and play other decks, which is not something we want. You don't want more Kanos by any means. Who else? Who else do you think is a big winner here?
And I'm told the Tekla Boston's a pretty good deck if Dromai doesn't exist.
It's a joke.
That's what I've been hearing.
Copium. Also,
Yeah, that's
can't
some
beat
strong
Kano.
copium.
That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Just
Let me
straight up
advocate
dog.
for a different mechanologist. Have you guys heard of Dash, Inventor Extraordinaire? She has a really good setup deck. Like you can set up very well against the slow decks with your pistol plan. And actually has a really good Kano matchup, kind of for the same reasons she was really good into like Icelander. You have a lot of blues, you have AB3, your cards are very modal and aggressive. So naturally she just lines up really well into Kano. And then you're really good against these other control decks, and you can have a reasonable aggro configuration for brutes, ninjas, like the other aggro decks. I think Azalea is a tough matchup. That's like the one matchup I'm kind of afraid of. But I think besides that, I think Dash she's in a good spot. She is hyper customizable, almost too customizable for my own sanity. But I think that she's a good choice right now.
I don't believe you.
I know. I can't. I swear it's an honest opinion. I can't promise that though.
I think we'll have to see how it shapes out. But I think she's probably in the exact same spot she was at before because Dromai was not really a problem child for her. While it could be difficult, she had a lot of tools to be able to really punish Dromai already. And I don't see that really changing. If anything, there'll be more Azaleas or there'll be more decks that are problems for her, I think.
The other thing too, though, is I think she is better against the decks that were bad against Dromai, and also I think she's really good against Prism. Achilles Accelerator is really sick in that matchup. Like you can just let it sit and hang out, and then they can just never Arclight Sentinel you. And if late in the game, like you can kill their Genesis and not really lose tempo. Like I've not lost to many Prisms playing Dash, and if that's like the new like hot illusionist that people want to play, I think it's a really good.
There's no world where the adoption rate of Prism ticks up enough from the Dromai. It's just not even close to that type.
Yeah, it's not going to be like 20%.
I heard Prism was ruining the game.
Is it?
Didn't she like win a battle harden or something? And you can't break the loop, and the game's broken or something.
The loop is not real, and it can't hurt you. People just need to learn. Look, everyone who keeps just losing to Prism, it's honestly just because they don't know how to play against the deck. Like it's
they should watch your gameplay video when you're playing Hatchet Story.
Yeah. I mean, it's a skill test. It's like old Dawnblade Dory, where it was just like it was a knowledge-based test. And that's basically what Prism is for most of the decks. I know there was like a bunch of people freaking out because of the Dromai match. It's like, yeah, she gets endless soul against Dromai by running her heralds into the dragons, and so yeah, she can actually play ALS several times, but that does not happen against most decks. Once in a great while, you'll set up a real loop against a different opponent, and it's like very rare. And most of the time, if they're able to clear anything or they put any tech into their deck for it, they can easily get out of these type of situations. Just no one is teching for Prism right now.
Yeah, my fear isn't the loop. My fear is when they go like the draw 2 angel into like tome into like Genesis Arclight, and you're just like, oh, I'm super dead now. I can't kill the angel, I can't kill the Genesis, my turn's locked up, whatever. Like those turns happen. They have those pop-off turns. Like
I'm gonna let you know a little secret. You can block and they can't push damage through because they are limited in the amount of damage that they can output in a single turn.
You're so
their
right.
ability
I love
to
not
push,
blocking. It's hard to block.
Their ability to push over your defensive value in your hand is very minuscule. They have to do it through Figment of War. It's the only way for them to actually create enough damage in a turn to push through someone just blocking. So someone blocking with 3 cards and then hitting an aura or a problem child, and then the next turn blocking with 3 cards and then hitting a problem child, and repeating this indefinitely, they're only risking their ability to lose against 1 out, and the out is double merciful with a whole bunch of spectral shields ticked up. So like, if you understand like all of the ways that like the deck actually functions and you're aware of it while you're playing it, there's very few decks in the game are just hard countered by her, in my opinion. But you have to actually be willing to be patient and clear and understand that their actual damage output isn't nearly as high as it looks or feels. during the game.
Yeah, the combat trick, that +3 or whatever that they play in yellow, that one like will get me sometimes.
Yep.
And then
I'm not saying that
it
like
kinda
Prism
rolls
can't
away.
run you over. Prism can
Yeah.
absolutely have games where they run you over, but it's not nearly as like threatening or dominating as the deck feels when you're playing against it. Now it feels very scary when you're playing as Prism, and all of a sudden they got like a bunch of stuff on the board, and you're just like, how can I ever overcome all this? And then like if you just look at them, actually, they're like, I'll throw a Herald, I'll throw 4, I'll maybe throw another Herald, and then you're like, wait, that's it? That's all the damage you can do? That's all they can do forever at most. That's their maximum damage output. It's like it gets way less scary as you like start to realize that.
I will say also, for the people that haven't played against the Prism cards, for God's sakes, save a piece of armor to block Herald of Erudition. The draw 2, if it hits, you just don't go down to 0 armor. Don't be like, oh, this one's scary. No, there's a scarier one coming. It's gonna go again. It draws 2. You can't block it. You just have to save that. You cannot use up all your armor against Prism.
I'm let you in on another secret. If Passing Mirage is gone, if like you've cleared Passing Mirage and you've cleared Genesis, the next highest priority thing for you to clear is not Merciful Retribution. It is Piercing. Piercing is a very big problem because you can't block while you're trying to deal with everything because it gets an extra +2. So don't leave Piercing till the end. They just get so much extra value out of that if you're not like a popper deck, right? But this is like, you can learn how to beat Prism, is my honest opinion. If you can sit down and practice and like play Prism a bunch, I 100% believe that for most decks, they can, 1, put some tech cards in that make the matchup a lot easier, and 2, you can learn as a player just how to beat the deck in general. Which is why I'm not super worried about Prism like taking over. For example,
Yeah,
I was talking to a Victor who said he's going to run Time Skippers and 2 Hammers. That's spicy, right?
That'll do.
And you don't have to save any cards. It doesn't matter what you have. You can immediately just clear Erudition when they flip. So there's some tech for anyone out there who's a Victor player who's already running both Hammers, because I've seen builds that have Titans and Millers in it. Just put it in, equip both your Hammers, and just be like, bah, gotcha. You just need 3 blues. Okay, what else? What else we think is a big winner? Kasai?
Yep, you can play Kasai again.
All the random warriors. Every random warrior you can dream of. It's a lot better.
Yep. Kasai is actually playable now. I mean, I know Kasai won, a calling, but like, you got lucky. You didn't play a bunch of Dromai. Like, it's just how it goes. You played super well and you had good gym luck. Like that's what has to happen, because you just really can't beat, you can't beat Dromais. But if you don't face them, then you're in a good spot. But now you don't have to worry about that. You still have Kano, which is super hard. I think Victor is not that bad as Kasai, personally.
I think she's favored with her specializations.
I agree. I think it's way,
like, she has the tech for the mirror and for like all the slow matchups that like don't combo you.
Yep. I think Victor's way easier than it is for Hatchets, for example.
Yep. Just raise an army.
So we should see a lot more Kasai, I would expect, because now she's actually much more playable. But
yeah, I think we saw like 0 over the weekend, right? Locally.
Yeah,
maybe there was 1.
Maybe there was 1.
Yeah. We saw an Olympia, but no Kasai.
Yeah. I think...
Yeah, she won 4 Pro Quests. So many she won.
Yeah, she only won 4. I think another big winner, people might not realize, is KO. KO is a huge winner from this. KO does not want to play against good Dromais. Good Dromais beat KO. It's like a really bad matchup for KO. And now he doesn't have that. I think KO's like way better. And if more people start picking up Victor, KO's way happier. That's a good matchup for KO. So like KO got way better from this by Dromai being gone. Now he has to be able to beat Kasai's, in which the matchup, I think Kasai has a way easier time into KO than Hatchet does it. Hatchet one, I think Hatchet's still favored, but you can definitely lose it. It's hard. You have to play very, very well, and you have to draw decent. But Kasai's matchup is way easier into KO.
Yeah, KO just can't stop any of the on hits, right? So you just build up all the copper, gold, and then you just get to wait till you get blood on her hands trying to set up.
Yeah, you actually get to play blood on your hands in that matchup, which is like
Mhm.
not a card you get to
Mhm.
resolve against most players.
Yeah,
And
her
that
power
card
cards
is-
are very powerful. in
Card's
that matchup.
absurd, especially in aggro mirrors, where you get to go like block 9, whatever, crack a gold, like blood on her hands, and just go wide. Like that's so efficient. It's nuts.
Yep, you're just like block. And you still get to block with 2 cards in your boots, and then you only need like 2 cards to pull the combo off, and you're like, this feels great. Awesome. Any other decks we can think of that got better here? Any idea for decks that got worse?
Betsy got better.
Psh, that's not a real deck.
I was literally just gonna say any weird,
I just can't think of any other decks right now.
yeah, any weird like control deck you can build out of a typically not fatigued hero. Like I'm just thinking like Beefy Briar style stuff, or like I don't know, like ninja fatigue decks, or just any kind of like random control nonsense that was in the back of your notebook for months and months. You're like, oh, it can never be Dromai. It's time. It's time to unveil them. I think that's like probably like the most fun thing to work on if you're like a out of your mind deck builder.
I think Katsu is significantly worse than he was before this change.
Okay.
Not that his Dromai matchup was great. If you've actually spent a lot of time playing the Katsu and Dromai, it's not nearly as cursed as it used to be of a matchup for the Dromai player. But it was a match that Katsu would like to see quite often. And when I'm playing in the decks that that she was keeping away are decks that Katsu doesn't want to see. So I think Katsu significantly worse, especially if people pick up Victor more, if they pick up Azalea more. These aren't decks that Katsu ever wants to play against. I think we're in a real question, though. Is there any reason to play Bravo anymore? Because you played Bravo because its Dromai matchup was better. But I can't think of that many good reasons. Why would I play Bravo over Victor now?
I mean, the answer is always the specializations, but what's the application here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or people just build in a way to be more setup oriented. Probably can be a bit better. Just like if Victor is like, I'm going to hard fatigue you, and people are like, okay, I'll just set up whatever kind of 2 or 3 card plan to either grind value late or I don't know, just whatever you can do to beat a fatigue deck. Bravo can show up and be like, oh no, I actually have like real attacks. Like I can just dominate you, and you can't just sit around all day. So if people like cut their defensive cards in these like setup decks against Victor, I could see Bravo getting better. But that's like week like 7 of this format. Like the format has to churn a bunch of times before it gets to that.
Yeah, I don't think Victor is a fatigue deck though. I think it's an accidental fatigue deck. Like it very often can just first cycle kill you because that's when it's strongest. It's strongest when it has Test of Strength and Trounce. As soon as it runs out of those things, the deck's terrible. Like it's just a bad deck after that. But when it has those things, it is way above what the curve can be. So I've seen the Victors play mainly 2 different ways, and it's just first cycle aggro you with their go agains and big hammer, etc. Or second cycle they just pitch stack like gross hands at the bottom of the game. They're even like putting Trounce in there. They like pitch stack their Trounce so that they can like block in the middle of their pitch and then draw a card and then just go off on you. And like both of those ways are like really hard to deal with. But as soon as again they're out of Trounces and tests, I think the game's way easier. It's just like, can you survive that, right? But I think that's mostly what we should see. I think thinking like Arachne and Riptide are now like tier 1 decks is a bit ridiculous. But they're more playable. You have less 0% matchups, and I think that's always good. Like if you're like if you're a specialist on these type of decks and you bring them, you now are way less held back than you were previously. You're probably making up for the fact that you're a little behind by being really good at your deck and like knowing all the matchups better than your opponent. But now you just don't have 0, like you don't have just another big 0% matchup to worry about anymore. So I think if you're playing any of those Fringer decks and you've been playing them for a while, I think you should be really happy about this LL. Great. Anything else about the new meta you want to talk about? that we didn't mention?
No, just excited to innovate some deck lists.
Yeah, I'm excited to cut all the cracked baubles from hatchets.
I don't know, man. If you look at the pool, all of the blues are cracked baubles.
I don't believe that anymore.
Ones that block 3 at least.
Yeah, fair. I don't know. I think there are ways we can play the deck more aggressive. Maybe, mix more of the other lists that were floating around with our list, since our list was very much focused on being like somewhere between 40 and 60% against everything in the field. And now I think you can probably try and ratchet some of those matchups up because you don't have all of these extra considerations for being able to beat Dromai anymore.
Yep. Yeah, I think like Cleave's really interesting.
Yeah. Putting
like the whole point of the deck is to be modular, right? So like if you have an extra $1, like great. 1 card, 4 damage. Amazing. If not, just block 3.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. Next, let's do some of our podcast questions. These questions were asked by members of our premium Discord. If you'd like to be able to ask questions on the podcast, feel free to join our Discord below, in which we have all of our videos as well as a bunch of other benefits, like people who are winning their ProQuests with our hatchet list. Okay, first question here comes from Renzo, and it says, testing a team looks very rewarding. What would you say are the 5 most important things to remember or do as a testing team? I think this is a good question.
It is. I mean, I'll first say we went pretty deep on this on the Instant Speed podcast. You want to check out that episode, but we'll put some thoughts together now too. So was it the 5 most important things to do as a testing team?
Yeah. I think number 1 is get buy-in from all the people on the testing team. I think that's the most important thing. If you do not have buy-in for everyone having a shared vision or goal as a team, I don't think you're going to be very successful as a team. Everyone just doing their own thing separately and not collectively, agreeing on what you want to get out of the process, I think makes it rather difficult. So having everyone on the same page, I think, is number 1 for me.
I agree. You got to be aligned.
I think like the expectation that people are going to be working on stuff and people are going to be coming back to the group with good ideas and ideas that they've spent time on and kind of refined before showing to everybody. That kind of buy-in, I think, is really important because you have some people that are more serious or less serious, obviously, but you all need to be within kind of a certain range with each other.
Yeah, after that, it's like create a plan, like a process, testing plan, whatever it might look like. Write it down, like make some actual structure, execute on that structure, and then evaluate how it went, right?
Yep.
You have to have like a feedback loop going.
Agreed.
I think a big thing, and we struggle with it as a team also, we talk about it all the time, is like having meaningful communication. Like we get lost in using hyperbole and you can be like, this deck's busted. It's great. It never loses to this deck. And really, I mean, it has like a 65% matchup into it or whatever. I think that's a big thing. And I think also something too is like the testing for a Pro Tour. Like I'm never more like generally anxious than like a month before the Pro Tour or whatever. Like the rest of the time I feel zero anxiety ever. And like leading up to an event, I have that kind of anxiety. And like that happens to everybody, especially if it's like you're kind of new to, if it's like one of your first Pro Tours you've played or this is your first one you've qualified for, and just being kind to your teammates and like loving and caring towards your teammates and giving them a place to enjoy playing Flesh and Blood while prepping, I think is really, really important. Because it's like once things aren't fun, people can just be like, well, F this, I'm just trying to go work on my own. Like, I'm done with you guys, or whatever. Like, it can get volatile like that, or even it's just like, it's just not pleasant and it's not fun to spend a lot of time doing. So I think just always being like kind of, I don't know, being loving in your communication with everybody, I think is always good.
Yeah, those are 2 good ones. I think communicate is probably like the biggest thing. The more you do that, the better off you'll be.
Yeah.
I know Cody's a big proponent of Hydra in games, right?
I am a big component of hydrogen games. I think they're very important for beginning processes, especially if you're trying to get everyone's skill level up at the same time, or also at like if you're trying to learn, if multiple people want to learn a deck at the same time. I think hydrogen is bad like 3 weeks out from the event, for example, you kind of need to be able to do things on your own and then talk about it afterwards, maybe, or just record a video and have someone watch it. I think is probably better, because you need to be able to do it by yourself. But I think like your first month going into a cycle, say you have a 2-month cycle, your first month going into the cycle hydrating, I think is great. Great way to practice. Okay, next question here is from Sam. It says, with Dromagon, what deck do you think gets the most power in the new meta? I think we spent most of the time talking about this, but
Kano.
You could make a good argument for KO as well.
That is the conclusion.
You could make a good KO argument, but it's Kano or KO. One of the Ks.
We're back to where we started.
Next from Ham. How much time do you devote to Fab every week/day? Ooh, calling people out here.
Honest answer? Do we want honest answers? Too many hours? Too many hours?
I mean, my answer is as many hours as I have. So like I have like things I have to prioritize over practice, and then however many hours remain in the day or the week, that's how many hours I play. It depends on if it's like on season or off season too. Like it was just like, I don't know, before the new set drops, like before Pro Tour, I have 1 weekly armory now that I can consistently make. But then if it's like ProQuest, I'm playing 10 hours both of those days. So it's, I don't know, average week is probably like in the 20-hour range. I used to, when I was like working home and I didn't have to commute, I was able to get in like 3 to 4 hours a day when we're like actually grinding for majors. But now I'm like happy if I can get in 2 hours a day.
I am a degenerate. So I will say during cycle times, it is a lot. It is
all the time.
All of the time. So if we're in a cycle prepping for like a Pro Tour or a Nationals or Worlds, it is all of the time that I'm not doing something else, I am spending on the game. So, and I have said multiple times, I have functioned my life around the ability to not do anything else but play card games. So we are talking like on cycle times, there's easily like 8 hours in a day that I will be working on stuff around the game during cycle time. With the difference being Fridays is probably half that much. Saturdays I spend 0 time on, and Sundays I spend half as much. But during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, it's probably like 8 hours a day. If I have to be honest, during cycle time. Right now, it's a light schedule, so it's probably 3 or 4 hours a day because I just like playing the game. So if it counts like putting Talishar up, I think I've played like 8 or 9 Talishar games today before doing the podcast throughout the day, because I'm just like playing with decks because Dromai's gone, and I'm testing different stuff. And then on the weekends now during ProQuest season, I'll be putting in a lot more. So, I mean, I could easily probably put anywhere in from, again, 20 to 40 hours a week playing the game. But I don't really think about how many hours it is because I usually enjoy the process. And I also find because I leave and go spend time with my girlfriend on the weekend, it's like I have a whole day off throughout the day. So it's like Saturday I don't do anything for Flesh and Blood, and Friday night I don't do anything, and then like Sunday morning I don't do anything. So like that's like enough of a break that I'm like fired up to get home on Sunday to like regrind it out. But I think taking like a whole day off essentially from playing even during cycle times really makes it so I don't get burned out. If anything, I take that like decompression day and I'll still think about some things or maybe go over some things in my head, while I'm hanging out. But it's like, it gives me like a day to just kind of like consolidate my gains from the week and then have like a new game plan going into what do I want to work on the next day. Right. I do not recommend anyone spend as much time playing this game as I do playing this game. This is not healthy. This is not a thing you should do for the betterment of your life. This is, if you're trying to get better at things like your job or, anything else in life, you should not spend this much time playing a card game. So I do not recommend any of these things, but this is what makes me happy. So this is what I've designed, my life to try to be able to do.
It does. But I'm probably right on like the 4-ish hour a day. My biggest weakness is I can never make myself be like, all right, it's time let's shut it down. Let's go to bed. I'm always like, let's fire up one more game. And then it's like 1:30 a.m. I should have gone to bed 2 hours ago, and I'm playing like a 45-minute game against Victor on Pistol Dash. And I'm like, this is the life. I love this. So I think that, yeah, like I just play a ton. It's always been a backbone in my life, playing card games online. But I think one thing too that I love about TCGs in general, is that you can think about them when you're not playing the game. Like on the drive to work, I'm brewing up a deck. On like lunch at work, or sometimes I'm just daydreaming at work. Like I can think of different ideas and think of like, oh, is this deck better now because of these matchups and all these different things. And I love always having that like Rubik's Cube to play with. And so I think that making like that does kind of count as time playing. Like and you want to kind of like foster that growth of wanting to play Fab in yourself, like in making it fun for yourself, I think.
I agree. I mean, I have taken a new motto. I heard Day 9 say this, that because I also am a person who it'll be like 1:30 and I'll be like, maybe I should play a Prism game. But I heard Day 9. I like turned on one of his videos. I'm a big Day 9 fan, and I turned on one of his videos and he said that the best performance enhancing drug in the world is sleep. And I'm like, that's pretty accurate. And like, that's like an easier way for me to digest. Maybe I should go to bed a little earlier sometimes. So
yeah, it's like really not close.
Yeah.
The difference, like it's insane.
So I'm going to try and remind myself of that motto, that mantra, to help me, disconnect and go to bed earlier. Because I do think it is a huge advantage if you have a good sleep schedule. And
yeah, and that's why I like heavily prioritize this cycle, and why I did like as little prep as I sadly did. But like early on, I have to sacrifice sleep. Like when the set first drops, like I'm not going to sleep. Like I got to solve this meta. I got to figure out what the best deck is. But then like a month out from the Pro Tour is when I'm going to start. Like I'm in bed at 11.
For sure. Okay, good question there. Milan asks, is it time to finally take Riptide when there's this much warrior without the Great Axe going around? Sure, if you want. I don't know. I think the matchup's fine.
I don't know. I just played a game and it was terrible. It was the first time I played against Riptide and just like didn't try to fatigue and like played my go against, and it was terrible. It was not close. I took like 2 points of trap damage a turn. Like I lost my arsenal every time I tried to set one. I got a frailty every other turn. Like I don't understand. It was like so unplayable. So now Great Axe is in my deck. So yes and no to your question, because if Riptide's good, then they'll put Great Axe in their deck.
Fair. Mike at Blockout Party asks, what current playable decks do you think could be pushed out of the meta by the new MST heroes? That is all dependent on Illusionist and how good it is, because Illusionist does a lot of pushing.
Yeah, it's the big one.
Yeah, I did see the ninja maybe pushing Fi out.
What Fi?
He is a little bit more of a linear.
What is?
There is no Fi.
So dead.
Fi.
He's like so far in the ground already. Please.
Yes. It is beating a dead horse, but fully removing him from the format.
Dude, I haven't seen
he's the highest on the Living Legend leaderboard.
He's so far removed already.
He's the closest to LL. What do you mean? He's the most powerful. That's what that means.
Oh.
But I can see that. I think the new ninjas, Zan is really interesting. And I am really interested to see New as well. I could see if she really does prey on like the blue heavy kind of like Guardian decks and just is able to just like play their Thunderquakes for free or whatever. I could see that being kind of a nightmare matchup for him. But it'll be interesting nonetheless. But I could see that being tough.
Look, Guardians don't need any help being not in the meta if there's a new Illusionist. So
that is true.
Yeah, I'm with Cody. It depends on how the Illusionist works.
Mm-hmm. The whole game is for a lot of the game, it's been shaped around what the current Illusionist is and what is playable and what is not playable. Okay. Cusco asks, with the banning of Crown of Seeds signaling the return of elements on the horizon, What are you looking forward to the most about them returning, and what are you looking forward to the least? Well, I would just like to have talents again so I can use, a whole hundreds of cards that I own and start thinking about, because I think a lot of the Earth cards, while printed weirdly for what we consider now, I think there's random times an Earth card will pop in my head and be like, ooh, I wonder if I could use, oh wait, there's nothing that uses that card. So it would be nice to go back through and just have like a whole new, essentially it's like a whole new second set to think about when you're trying to tackle a meta, where you can be like, yeah, we know this Earth card works really well. So maybe like, is that good enough to like play the Earth hero? So like, there's a lot of stuff like that I think would be exciting. I think the lightning cards are, always been interesting, but a little underplayed. No one wants ice though. We're done. No, go away, ice.
I'm not looking forward to frostbites.
Yeah, it has to be completely remade.
No interest in frostbites.
It's gonna be so sad because people have forgotten and like move their decks way more to being all like red line and not needing all these blues. And then once frostbites are back, then it's like no more fun, kids. Gotta pack your blues.
It's like you can build a deck now. Like you can have a game plan at the deck building period that doesn't just go away immediately because this deck just makes a frostbite every turn.
Yes.
Yeah, your very, very efficient resource curve doesn't just get stopped and just murdered.
Dude, Hatchets is unplayable.
Yeah, like imagine playing Hatchet.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like what? What do? I can't swing the second Hatchet ever. What's the point? Dynamo's gonna block one.
Yeah, maybe they'll ban Channel Frigid. Maybe that's the one we need. But even then, frostbites in general are just so strong.
I don't expect them to be back for a very long time, and when they come back, ice is going to be a whole new, different mechanic. IMO.
Yeah, hopefully it just like freezes arsenal and equipment and doesn't tax.
Or maybe does additional damage if something's already frozen. So like you could freeze their hero, and then like if you do something else, then it like does additional damage because it froze their hero, because their hero's frozen. That's a very common ice related ability in video games.
Yeah, something we can at least like play around or plan around. That doesn't completely warp the entire structure of our deck.
The entire structure of the game, of every single deck.
Yep.
I don't even want to think about ice. I like Earth coming back because I think Earth is like unexplored and is, interesting.
Yeah, Earth has cool cards.
And lightning is like damage on damage kind of effects. It's like whatever, I'm fine with that coming back, but no one wants to think about ice.
I guess I am looking forward to if ice comes back, like my deck choices for tournaments will be super easy.
Yeah.
Just whatever the better ice hero is, lock it in. Great.
Earth is cool, but I'm really not excited to get Channel Mount Heroic again. I feel like my face still hurts from all the beatings from Channel Mount Heroic I've taken over the years. And like, if that's a good card, it's strong. It's gonna be one of the best cards in the format.
I think Channel's okay. Force of Nature, though, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. They're Bonnie and Clyde. They're never seen apart.
Okay, last question here from Hey It's Taters. Says, what's your advice for a person with access to play every class and hero and habitually changes heroes to their own detriment? I can give you some rules. I think what you should do to yourself is you should assign rules to yourself about when you're allowed to switch from a hero. So step one would be to find a hero that you like or you can put up with playing for extended periods of time. Switching until you find that makes sense. We've all done that, right? But you find something that's like interesting or something you like. You should put like a rule in place where until you have all of the game plans for most of the matchups and all of your sideboards for most of the matchups memorized, you probably shouldn't be allowed to switch decks. You haven't then displayed a level of mastery that would make sense for switching to a new deck. And if you can't do that, if you don't have game plans for everything, if you can't line out exactly what you're trying to do in every match, then probably don't switch to a new deck until you know how to do that. But they could be rules for anything, but some type of rule like that. Like once I could do this for the deck, then I'm allowed to switch. So you at least have a goal that you're going towards.
Yeah, I like that. Could definitely be beneficial to like practicing a bunch of decks, but if they're not like getting a deep understanding, you're kind of missing a lot of value there.
2 weeks, I'm going to too confident with it. That's what you gotta do for pro tours. So in big events, you have about 2 weeks or whatever, or a month if you're lucky. So forming that muscle of just like, all right, I can get to feeling very, very confident with the deck very quickly is very, very good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important you got to be competent to win a lot of these events, especially now. There isn't just a deck that you could just typically pick up, walk to a tournament, just win without any like good understandings. You're going to have to like get a guide from some people who have a guide on how to play a deck with all the matchups for you, ready to go. Or because there isn't like a Starvo that you can just pick up and its inherent power carries you through a tournament, right? You have to.
I think the closest decks have scab skins in them.
I agree.
For what it's worth.
Yeah, KO is pretty good.
Yep.
But you still need matchup plans, and that's going to take time. So I really like that. Unless you have, because I know what it feels like. Like it's hard for me to get off hatchets because like we have so much work and game plans into it, and then you go play a new deck, and you're like, this feels so terrible. And it's like, well, is the deck terrible, or is it because you don't know any of the matchups? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's always that like initial start playing a deck, and you're just like, oh, this feels way worse than what I've been doing previously, or this other deck that I've been looking at. But if you can't sit there and be like, I know what the matchups are for every deck, and it still feels terrible, then it's like maybe it's probably just a knowledge issue. And people typically like things that they're knowledgeable or good at, and once you get knowledgeable or good at something, it's easier to like it. So maybe get to that point and see how you actually feel about the deck. Cool. Well, I think that is about everything we got for today. So I am going to go probably play some more Prism because that's what I've been enjoying playing. So goodbye, everyone. See ya.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope here,
Seven
but
envelope.
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope and Darkness.